I can't eat anything from your hands. Billionaire yells at the black waitress, then regrets it forever. The rain came down in sheets that Tuesday night, drumming against the diner windows like 1,000 tiny fingers asking to come in. Maya stood behind the counter, wiping down the same spot she'd cleaned 3 times already, watching the clock inch toward closing. 25 years old, and some nights she felt ancient. Her feet ached in a way that went deeper than the physical, the kind of tired that seeps into your bones when you've been standing your whole life, waiting for something to change. She'd found $100 bill tucked under a coffee cup earlier, left by the businessman in the corner booth. No note, just the crisp bill and the faint scent of expensive cologne still lingering in the air. She wondered about people like that, the ones who could leave a week's worth of her tips without a second thought. Where are you watching from tonight? Morning came the way it always did at Rosie's diner, with the smell of burnt coffee and the sound of Hank flipping eggs on the griddle. Maya tied her apron strings twice, a habit her grandmother had taught her. Double knot means double luck, she used to say, though Maya had stopped believing in luck somewhere around her 23rd birthday. The regulars knew her by name. Old Mr. Patterson always ordered his toast dry with a side of jam he never touched. The nurses from the hospital across the street came in at 6:30 sharp, tired eyes grateful for Maya's smile and the way she remembered how each of them took their coffee. She moved through the morning rush like a dancer who'd learned the steps so well she could perform them in her sleep. "You're too good for this place, sweetheart," Mrs. Chen said, sliding into her usual spot by the window. She came every morning since her husband passed, said the diner felt less lonely than her kitchen. Maya poured her coffee without asking. "Good enough for me, Mrs. Chen." But that wasn't quite true. At night, when the diner emptied and she counted her tips in the back room, Maya thought about the nursing school brochures hidden in her locker. She'd been accepted 2 years running and deferred twice. Money was always the wall she couldn't climb over. Around 11, a black sedan pulled up outside. Maya noticed it because cars like that didn't usually stop at Rosie's. They belonged to the new development downtown, where apartments cost more per month than Maya made in a year. A man stepped out, tall and sharp in a suit that probably cost more than her car. He moved with the kind of confidence that came from never having been told no. He chose a booth near the back, didn't look up when she approached with the coffee pot. "Good morning. Can I start you with some coffee?" His eyes lifted to meet hers, and something shifted in his expression. Something Maya had seen before but never gotten used to. A hardness. A judgment made in the space of a heartbeat. "Is there someone else who can serve me?" The diner's noise seemed to fade. Maya felt her smile freeze on her face, felt the weight of every eye that had suddenly turned their way. Her hand tightened around the coffee pot's handle. "I'm sorry." Maya's voice came out steadier than she felt. The man set down his phone with deliberate care. "I asked if there's someone else available. Surely you have other staff." Hank had stopped cooking. Mrs. Chen's coffee cup hung suspended halfway to her lips. The morning noise of the diner had collapsed into a terrible, waiting silence. "I'm the only waitress on duty right now, sir." Maya kept her voice level, professional. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. Asterisk, "You hold your head up, baby. Don't ever let them make you small. Asterisk. Then I'll wait. Sir, I don't eat anything touched by your people." He said it quietly, almost conversationally, as if he were commenting on the weather. "I have standards about cleanliness. I'm sure you understand." The coffee pot trembled in Maya's hand. She thought about her grandmother, who'd worked in kitchens her whole life. About her mother, who cleaned houses to put food on their table. About every morning she'd woken up at 5 to be here, to smile and pour coffee and pretend that kindness was always returned. "I understand perfectly, sir." She set the coffee pot down on his table with exaggerated gentleness. "I understand that you're sitting in a diner where I've worked for 3 years. Where I've served every kind of person, rich, poor, rude, kind, and treated them all the same. I understand that you've decided who I am without knowing my name." She took a breath, felt the burn behind her eyes but refused to let the tears fall. "My name is Maya. I'm a good waitress. I wash my hands more times a day than I can count. I've never once served food I wouldn't eat myself. Her voice dropped lower. And I understand that nothing I say right now will change your mind about me. She turned to walk away, but his voice stopped her. You're fired. Maya turned back slowly. Excuse me. I own this building. I own the whole block, actually. I could have this place shut down by the end of the week. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Or you can leave quietly, and your friends here can keep their jobs. If this moment touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up. The diner had gone so quiet she could hear her own heartbeat. Maya looked at Hank, at Mrs. Chen, at the nurses clustered in their booth. All of them frozen, helpless. She thought about the nursing school acceptance letter in her locker. About rent due next week. About dignity and survival, and which one mattered more when you were 25 and exhausted. Maya's hands shook as she untied her apron in the back room. The strings tangled and she had to do it twice, 3 times, her fingers refusing to cooperate. Through the door she could hear the diner resuming its normal rhythm, everyone pretending nothing had happened. That was almost worse than the silence. She sat on the metal folding chair next to her locker, still holding the apron bunched in her lap. 3 years of coffee stains and pancake syrup, of mornings that started in darkness and nights that ended the same way. She thought about calling her mother, but what would she say? That she'd lost her job for the crime of existing? That all her mother's advice about working hard and keeping her head down hadn't been enough? The door creaked open. Mrs. Chen stood there, her weathered face creased with concern. You don't have to say anything, Maya managed. I understand. Understand what, honey? Mrs. Chen sat down beside her, moving slowly the way she did when her arthritis flared up. That you can't risk this place. That you need Hank to keep cooking your breakfast. Maya wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. I get it. I really do. Mrs. Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she reached. We all saw what happened, Hank said gruffly. Every one of us will testify. Maya stared at them, these people she'd served coffee to for 3 years, whose lives she'd glimpsed in fragments between breakfast and lunch rush. They were standing here, in her corner, when they had everything to lose. Have you ever faced something like this? Share your story in the comments. Why? She whispered. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. Because you always remember my toast. And because it's right. He shrugged, uncomfortable with sentiment. Simple as that. For the first time since that morning, Maya felt something shift inside her chest. Not quite hope, not yet, but something close to it. Something that felt like strength. Mrs. Chen's son arrived within an hour, a neat man in his 40s with his mother's eyes and his father's gentle firmness. He took statements from everyone, made phone calls in rapid-fire Mandarin, and assembled what he called an airtight case in less time than it took to serve lunch rush. But it was Mrs. Chen herself who walked back out to the dining room, straight to the booth where the man still sat scrolling through his phone. Maya watched from the kitchen, Hank beside her. Excuse me, sir. Mrs. Chen's voice carried through the diner. I've been coming here every morning for 4 years, since my husband died. Maya knows how I take my coffee. She knows I can't eat eggs anymore because they upset my stomach, so she brings me oatmeal instead, charges me for toast. She knows Tuesdays are hard because that's when Henry and I used to go to the park. The man looked up, annoyed. My husband cleaned toilets at your father's first office building. Your father knew his name. Mrs. Chen's voice didn't rise, but it filled every corner of the room. He knew my name. He came to Henry's funeral. She paused. What happened to you? For the first time, uncertainty flickered across the man's face. My son is outside. He's a lawyer, and he's very, very good at what he does. You'll be hearing from him. She straightened her small frame. But before that happens, I want you to know something. Maya was going to walk away. She was going to let you destroy her to save the rest of us. That's who you tried to break this morning. The man's phone buzzed. Then again. By the third buzz, his expression had changed entirely. Maya watched him read something on the screen, watched the color drain from his face. If you've been enjoying this story, subscribe for more heartwarming tales. He stood abruptly. I need to. He stopped, looked around at all the faces watching him. For a moment, he looked lost. Then he walked to the kitchen door where Maya stood. I don't expect forgiveness, he said quietly. But I need to tell you something. My father just died. 3 weeks ago. His voice cracked. He built his whole empire on treating people with dignity. Every person, regardless of who they were. And this morning He couldn't finish. Maya saw something she hadn't expected, genuine remorse. Real pain. The armor cracking to show the human underneath. What's your name? She asked. David. David Morrison. I'm sorry about your father, David. 3 months later, Maya stood in front of her bathroom mirror, adjusting the collar of her new nursing school uniform. The apartment was small but hers, the first place she'd ever lived alone. Sunlight streamed through the window, catching dust motes that danced like tiny stars. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen, * first day. So proud. Don't forget your lunch. *. Another from Hank, knock 'em dead, kid. And one from a number she'd saved but still felt strange seeing, * good luck today. You're going to be an amazing nurse. David, *. The settlement had been generous. More than generous. David Morrison had not only paid for her nursing school in full, but he'd also set up a scholarship fund in his father's name, specifically for service workers pursuing healthcare careers. The first recipient would be announced next month. But it was what happened after that first terrible morning that Maya thought about most. David had come back to the diner the next day. And the day after that. He came every morning for a week, ordering coffee and toast, leaving $100 tips he insisted be split among all the staff. He didn't make speeches or excuses. He just showed up. On the 7th day, he'd asked if they could talk. They'd sat in that same booth, the one where everything had gone wrong, and he'd told her about his father. About a man who'd built an empire from nothing, who'd never forgotten where he came from. About the pressure of being the son, the one expected to be just as good but never quite measuring up. About grief and fear and how sometimes people lash out at the world when they're really just angry at themselves. I saw my father in you, he'd said quietly. The dignity, the grace under pressure. Everything I was afraid I'd never have. He'd looked at her with tired eyes. I'm not making excuses. What I did was unforgivable. But I want you to know I'm trying to do better. Maya had listened, had seen the truth in his face. And she'd made a choice, not to forget, but to let the anger go. To believe that people could change, could grow, could become better than their worst moments. Now, grabbing her bag and keys, she took one last look around her small apartment. The acceptance letter was framed on the wall. Beside it, a photo from Rosie's diner, her, Hank, Mrs. Chen, the nurses, all smiling into someone's camera phone. And tucked in the frame's corner, a note on expensive cardstock, * to Maya, thank you for teaching me what my father knew all along. Every person deserves dignity. Every person deserves respect. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to live up to that. D.M. *. The morning air was cool as she stepped outside. Somewhere across town, David Morrison was probably sitting in a boardroom, trying to build something worthy of his father's name. Mrs. Chen was settling into her booth at Rosie's, where Maya still stopped by on weekends. Hank was burning eggs and pretending he didn't care that she'd moved on. And Maya was walking toward a future she'd once thought impossible, carrying with her the knowledge that sometimes the worst moments crack open to reveal unexpected grace. That forgiveness isn't about forgetting, it's about choosing not to let bitterness poison your own heart. That change, real change, starts with one person deciding to be better than they were yesterday. She thought about her grandmother, wished she could tell her how the story ended. But maybe she already knew. Maybe that's why she'd always insisted on double knotting those apron strings. Double knot for double luck, and sometimes, when the world decides to surprise you, that luck comes wrapped in the most unexpected packages. The nursing school building rose ahead of her, all glass and possibility. Maya climbed the steps with her head held high, the morning sun warm on her face, ready to spend her life doing what she'd always done. Serving others, but this time with the tools to truly heal. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more. Thank you for spending your time with us today.